कुछ वर्ड नोट डाउन करेंगे। would be, would be able to, would have been, would not have been, would you be able to, with us, with his, with which, with each, with much, with one another, with such, with this matter, with those, with this, with these, with the result, with you, with whom, with reference to, with regard to the, with regard to that, with regard to this, वुड कहाँ लिखते हो? ऑन द लाइन। व्हाट के जस्ट सेम वे में ऑन द लाइन लिखते हैं। वुड बी एबल टू, एबल को हाफ कर देंगे टू के लिए। वुड हैव बीन, बीन के लिए हुक लगाएंगे। वुड नॉट हैव बीन, would you be able to, with his, with us, डैश लगा सकते हो उसके लिए। with which, with each, with much, अब लाइन हो जाएगा। with one another, एन की डबलिंग कर दो, वन को पूरा भी बना सकते हो यहां पे एन का हुक लगा के। विद सच, विद दिस मैटर, एम की डबलिंग कर देंगे। विद दोज, लाइन से ऊपर रखना, टच करेंगे, विद दिस हो जाएगा, विद दीज हो जाएगा। विद द रिजल्ट, with you, with whom, with reference to, reference, with को W बना के F और RNS, with regard to the, with regard to that, with regard to this, लिखो फिर से एक बारी। would be able to, would have been, would not have been, would you be able to, with his, with which, with each, with much, with one another, with such, with this matter, with those, with this, with these, with the result, with you, with whom, with reference to, with regard to the, with regard to that, with regard to this। डिक्टेशन लिखेंगे पहले 100 पे। आप सभी अपने काम को, होमवर्क को प्रॉपर वे में डेली बेसिस पे करते रहो। एग्जाम की डेट आएगी तो टाइम ज़्यादा नहीं मिल पाएगा। अभी समय है जितना मैक्सिमम ग्रोथ कर सकते हो, 100 पे जा सकते हो। 80 वाले बच्चे 90 प्लस क्रॉस कर सकते हैं अगर 80 का ही एग्जाम है, और 100 वाले बच्चे 110 तक जा सकते हैं। लेकिन अगर आप सोचते हो एग्जाम की डेट आने के बाद में तैयारी शुरू करोगे ढंग से, तो समय कम मिलेगा, उस टाइम पे नहीं, प्रेशर रहेगा बहुत ज़्यादा एग्जाम का। इस बीच में जितना मैक्सिमम कंटेंट कवर हो जाए उतना करते चले जाओ। 2 असाइनमेंट आपके चल रहे हैं लगभग। एक तो चल रहा है केसी रिव्यू के नाम से चल रहा है, जो कि लगभग कैलाश चंद का ही कंटेंट है सारा का सारा। एक मैं दे रहा हूँ आपको कॉमन वर्ड का, जो 12-15 वाले बैच में दे रहा हूँ। 1 जनवरी से मैं कोशिश करूँगा कि आपको इस बार प्रोग्रेसिव का कंटेंट भी मैं कुछ करवा देता हूँ। हालांकि एसएससी का जो पैटर्न रहा है वो कैलाश चंद ही है लंबे समय तक का। प्रीवियस ईयर के जो डिक्टेशंस है वो 12 बजे वाले बैच में जैसे ही कॉमन वर्ड कवर हो जाएगा, तो जो प्रीवियस ईयर में डिक्टेशंस हुई है वो सारी कवर करा दूंगा मैं आपको। तो कोशिश करो कि मैक्सिमम, अगर आप जो है 2-2 बार कर रहे हो 8 से 10 ट्रांसक्रिप्शंस करो, सिंगल टाइम कर रहे हो 3 से 4 करो, और एक ही बार सिंगल टाइम कर रहे हो तो 16 से 22 करो, और 4 बार कर रहे हो तो 3 से 4 करो। होमवर्क ये मिनिमम होमवर्क है जो करना ही होता है, और ठीक इसकी हाफ डिक्टेशन लेनी है आपको। अगर आप डेली बेसिस पे 2 बार कर रहे हो, 8 से 10 ट्रांसक्रिप्शंस कर रहे हो, सीन कंटेंट तैयार कर रहे हो, तो तुम्हें लगभग जो है 5 से 6 डिक्टेशन लेनी चाहिए, और 1 या 2 टाइप करनी चाहिए। और अगर आप 16 से 22 कर रहे हो, सिंगल टाइम टाइप कर रहे हो, तो लगभग 10-12 डिक्टेशन लो और 3 से 4 टाइप करो, क्योंकि आप उस टाइम पे 100 प्लस लिख रहे हैं अगर आप जो है सिंगल टाइम लिख रहे हैं। अगर आप सिंगल अभी 4 बार लिख रहे हो, तो कम से कम आप जो है 2 या 3 डिक्टेशन लो, मैक्सिमम 4 तक भी ले सकते हो, और टाइप करेंगे एटलीस्ट एक कंटेंट जरूर टाइप करेंगे। और क्रॉस चेक हर एक कंटेंट को, जो भी आप टाइप कर रहे हो, जो उसमें गलती आ रही है उस पर काम जरूर करना, ठीक है। हर बच्चे को पता होता है मेरी गलती कहाँ होती है। कुछ बच्चे की गलती ग्रामलोक्स में हो रही होती है, तो अगर ग्रामलोक्स में आपको पता है कि ग्रामलोक्स में गलती हो रही है, शुरुआत के पैटर्न्स में गलती हो रही है, विद वगैरह में, वाट में, वुड में, या ओ ही एंड शुड में, तो आपको उसको दूर करना है इमीडिएटली। आप वेट नहीं करेंगे हिट एंड ट्रायल मेथड की। हिट एंड ट्रायल एक लॉन्ग मेथड होता है, लंबा समय लेता है। एग्जाम के टाइम के अंदर हिट एंड ट्रायल मेथड वर्क नहीं करता, और हमेशा ये सजेस्ट किया जाता है जब गलतियां निकल के आ रही होती है तो उन पर काम करना होता है। आप सोचोगे आज हुई है मैंने देख ली कल दूर हो जाएगी, नहीं। आप उस पर काम कर लो, वो कल दूर हो जाएगी। लेकिन अगर आप उस पर काम नहीं करोगे, बस ऑब्जर्व करके छोड़ दोगे, तो उसको दूर होने में हफ्ता भी लग सकता है, महीना भी लग सकता है, जब तक आपका माइंड उसको कैच नहीं करेगा। और जब हम ऑब्जर्व करते हैं अपने आउटलाइंस को, तो मेन जो हमारा जो कॉन्सेप्ट होता है वो ये होता है, मिसरीड जो टाइप से गलतियां हो रही है उनके पेयर बना लो। डिफ्रेंशिएट नहीं कर पा रहे, उनके लिए कुछ ना कुछ अलग चीज़ें तैयार कर लो, पूछ लो, कलीग से पूछ लो, मेरे से पूछ लो, या फिर अपने आप से आसान चीज़ें डिफ्रेंशिएट करने के लिए तैयार करते हैं। या फिर आपसे स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक्स हो रही है लगातार, तो उन स्पेलिंग्स को नोट डाउन करो, पूरी पूरी लाइन का अभ्यास करो। फिर क्या करो, वीकेंड पे आप उनको सबको सिंगल टाइम पढ़ लो, फ़ोन में रिकॉर्ड हो जाएगी, फ़ोन पर रिकॉर्डिंग लगा दो, उसकी इंग्लिश में ही लिख के अभ्यास करो, ताकि वो स्पेलिंग दोबारा गलत ना हो। स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक्स एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो आपको दूर करनी पड़ती है मेहनत करके। सब बच्चों के अंदर नहीं होती है, लेकिन जिसके अंदर होती है उसको उनको दूर करना पड़ेगा उन वर्डों को। फिर आती है एस या एस की गलती करते हो, ईडी की गलती करते हो, या तो ईडी के लिए कट यूज़ करो, या सेंटेंस का टेंस समझो कि किस टेंस में बात हो रही है। आपको इन दोनों से कोई ना किसी चीज़ को कॉन्शियस रखना पड़ेगा अपने आप को। एस या एस की गलती, अगर एस लगाएंगे तो पढ़ा जाएगा, आप सोचते हो एस लिखते समय नहीं लगाएंगे और बाद में पढ़ लूँगे, ऐसा नहीं होता। आप जो आउटलाइन बनाते हो वही पढ़नी होती है, इसलिए अगर एस बोला गया है तो सर्कल लगाओ उसके अंदर। एस बोला गया है, सर्कल ना लगा रहे हो, तो वो आपको बिना सर्कल ही टाइप होगा। फिर दूसरी बात ये होता है कि कई बार, चलो ठीक है मैं मोस्टली केसेस में लगाता हूँ, लेकिन एक आध केस ऐसा हो जाता है, तो सेंस, स्टेनो के अंदर मैं कभी भी सेंस को प्रेफर नहीं करता हूँ। आपका जो ऑब्जेक्टिव होना चाहिए, अपनी जो आउटलाइन लिख दी वही सही है, वहाँ पे सेंस लगाने में गलतियाँ होने के चांस ज़्यादा होते हैं। तो अपनी आउटलाइन पे भरोसा करना स्टार्ट करो, डिफ्रेंशिएट करो, जो बनारे हो उस आउटलाइन को उस तरह से लेके चलो। और कंपटीशन नहीं होता किसी बच्चे का किसी दूसरे बच्चे से, अपने आप से होता है। जिस बच्चे की एक्यूरेसी आएगी, कंपटीशन 90% एक्यूरेसी आ गई, टारगेट 94 का सेट कर लो, 94 का। जो बच्चा यहाँ पे 90 प्लस लेके आ रहा है, आराम से डी क्वालिफाई कर लेगा। जो 93 94 लेके आ रहा है, वो सी भी क्वालिफाई कर लेगा। एक्यूरेसी के लिए पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बता रहा हूँ। और सबसे जो इनिशियल स्टेज पे आपका टारगेट है, यहाँ पे जब डिक्टेशन बोली जाती है, कुछ बच्चे स्टार्टिंग फेज में होते हैं, वो क्या करते हैं, पेंसिल रोक लेते हैं, नहीं वो लिखा नहीं जा रहा। लिखा इसलिए नहीं जा रहा क्योंकि आप सुनने के लिए तैयार नहीं हो। आप उन वर्डों को सुनो तो सही, आप उनको सुनेंगे तो वो लिखे भी जाएंगे। जब अगर हाई स्पीड है, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आपने जो है अपनी हिम्मत को तोड़ देना है। अरे हाई स्पीड आपसे जो है 800 वर्ड नहीं बनेंगे, 500 वर्ड जाएंगे, 400 बन जाएंगे, पर आप साथ साथ रहो तो सही। जब साथ साथ रहोगे तो आप स्पीड में ग्रो भी करोगे, लेकिन अगर आप कंफर्टेबल जोन तोड़ोगे ही नहीं तो ग्रोथ नहीं होती। हर एक चीज़ का नियम यही है कि अपने कंफर्टेबल जोन को तोड़ना ही पड़ता है, तब जाकर ग्रोथ होती है। किसी भी बच्चे को 60-70 पे लिखने की कभी सलाह नहीं दी गई आज तक का कि आप 60 पे लिख लो पहले डिक्टेशन, 40 पे लिख लो और 70 पे लिख लो। डिक्टेशन स्टार्ट होती है 80 से, आपको 80 पे जाना है। डिक्टेशन को अपने हिसाब से नहीं लेके आना, ना कभी कम स्पीड पे करके लिखते और ना इस चीज़ को एनालाइज करते। आपका पता है कि आपको 80 पे नौकरी मिलेगी और 100 पे नौकरी मिलेगी, अपने आप को 90 पे तैयार करो और 110 पे तैयार करो। तो जब आप डिक्टेशन लिखेंगे कोशिश करेंगे साथ साथ रहने की। कोमा यहाँ पे नहीं लगता, लेकिन अगर कोई बच्चा इतना तेजी से हाथ चला पाता है कि वो कोमा भी पुट कर सकता है तो पुट कर सकते हैं, मुझे कोई ऑब्जेक्शन नहीं उस बात से लेके। लेकिन मेरी कोई एडवाइस नहीं है कि आप कोमा डिक्टेशन के टाइम पे पुट करो। टाइपिंग करते टाइम पे कोमा पुट करते हैं, टाइपिंग करते टाइम पे स्मॉल कैपिटल का ध्यान रखते हैं। यहाँ पे कोई अंडरनेथ वगैरह नहीं लगाया जाता, वो सिखाया जाता है स्टार्टिंग में जब बेसिक करते हैं कि को कैपिटल है उसके नीचे अंडरनेथ लगा दो, लेकिन ये सब कॉमन सेंस में आ जाता है। जब टाइप करोगे तो खुद से लगाओगे। फुल स्टॉप का आपको गैप मिलेगा, फुल स्टॉप पुट करके चलना। तो फुल स्टॉप जब गलती नहीं करोगे तो वहां पे उसके बाद जो फर्स्ट लेटर आएगा वो आप टाइप करेंगे कैपिटल में लिखेंगे, डिक्टेशन लिखेंगे। और वही असाइनमेंट है आपके, सारी पूरी करके जमा कर दो। आप 9वें असाइनमेंट जो पीछे रह गए है ना, वो थोड़ी सी मेहनत ज़्यादा कर लो। असाइनमेंट 9 तक पहुंच चुका है। अगर कोई धीरे धीरे कर रहा है तो ये कोशिश करो कि वो डेली हफ्ते में 2 असाइनमेंट कर ले ताकि 7 पहुंच सके, क्योंकि इतना कवर करना ही पड़ेगा सबको लगभग। पहले 100 पे लिखेंगे। अगर आप अच्छा टाइप लिख लेंगे तो डिक्टेशंस जो है आपको SSC C D ग्रेड टेस्ट नंबर 59 के नाम से मिल जाएगी 100 पे, और फिर उसके बाद 80 पे बोलूंगा और उसके बाद नेक्स्ट बोलूंगा सीन कंटेंट। Started. It was suggested by the Commission that there should be a separate department for the scheduled tribes. This matter was considered in the conference, but it was generally felt that if the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes are separated to be dealt with by different departments, there will be a good deal of duplication of work, because 2 sets of officers will have to traverse the same area and more or less consider the same problems. It was therefore the unanimous opinion of the Conference of State Ministers that one department should deal with the problems of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, and it was also agreed that there should be a separate directorate for the same. If there is a separate directorate, then it can concentrate on problems concerning the scheduled tribes. It was also suggested that this directorate, which will have to be set up in all the states and especially in states where the population of the scheduled tribes exceeds 1 million, should also look after the work relating to the denotified and the nomadic tribes, in addition to, as I said, the work relating to the scheduled tribes. The conference was in favor of having tribes advisory councils to advise on the protection and development of the scheduled tribes in all the states and union territories, whether they have scheduled areas or not. The House, I am sure, is aware that there are scheduled areas and non-scheduled areas. Even in non-scheduled areas, a large number of scheduled tribes live, but for the special programs, we have decided to concentrate on the scheduled areas first. I shall come to that point later on, but I am merely mentioning that the scheduled tribes live both in scheduled areas and in non-scheduled areas. It was decided that wherever at present there is a combined reservation in the services for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, separate percentages of reservation should be fixed by the state governments, and it was agreed that the state governments would instruct all local authorities like municipalities, panchayat samitis, jila parishads, etc. to follow the policies laid down by them in regard to the representation of all scheduled tribes in the services. It was decided to have a small committee of officials from the tribal welfare department and the different departments at the state level to ensure coordination. The conference also agreed that there should be a section under the Chief Secretary for evolution of the tribal welfare program. If all these and other decisions taken at the conference are implemented with speed, as it is hoped there will be considerable improvement of the conditions which exist at present. I also want to mention, Madam, that we were told in the conference that this work was going to be entrusted to the Jila Parishads and Panchayats, and some of the schemes which have to be implemented in the rural areas will be executed by the Panchayats and the Jila Parishads. Well, I welcome this suggestion, but I only wanted to caution the district authorities and the state governments not to leave everything to the Jila Parishads and Panchayats and have no supervision and watch over their work. My fear is that because this will be a new work for them, they may not be able to bestow enough attention to the problems or the schemes concerning the scheduled tribes. They will have many other things to do. So it would be necessary that the district authorities should keep constant watch and they should function as the friend and guide of the panchayats and the Jila Parishads. Madam, there are two major schemes in respect of the scheduled tribes in the central sector of the program, which are controlled by the Ministry of Home Affairs and on which the entire expenditure is borne by the Government of India. There are the scheme of tribal development blocks and the scheme relating to promotion of cooperation among the scheduled tribes, particularly in the form of forest, laborers, cooperative societies and labor contract societies. The Ministry of Home Affairs appointed a special working group on cooperation about a year ago, and its report is expected shortly. That group will make detailed recommendations regarding the organization and structure of the society and other matters pertaining to the cooperative movement in areas predominantly inhabited by the scheduled tribes. We hope that on the basis of the working group recommendations, it will be possible to energize and expand the cooperative movement in tribal areas, and that the cooperatives will become the effective instruments for promoting the economic development of those areas. The other program, which is the major one and in which a great deal of interest is being evinced by the tribals themselves, in the program of tribal development blocks. The Commission have recommended that all tribal areas, whether they are scheduled areas or not, with a concentration of tribal population exceeding 50%, should brought under the tribal blocks. Sir, this bill was introduced in the House by the then Labour Minister Sri K.V. Raghunathan Reddy. I was also present at that time in the House. After a period of 9 long years, this bill has now come from the cold storage. It shows how powerful the plantation lobby in the country is. Even though after so much of time this bill has now been brought, I support this bill. In the name of a more comprehensive measure, I do not agree that this bill should be postponed or that it should be again referred to a joint committee. Some such proposal was there. I do not agree to that, though it is not adequate and some improvement from the point of view of workers is needed. I do not agree that we should postpone passing it. For example, it has been suggested that the acreage limit should be brought down to 5 hectares to cover more plantations. In the south, especially in Kerala, Karnataka and other southern states, many plantations are not covered by this bill. I would request the minister to carefully examine this thing. In North India and some other places, tea plantation is on a large scale. ये 100 की स्पीड है जिसकी फ्लैक्सेशन 10 वर्ड अपवर्ड साइड में है, 110 तक का है, 1000 प्लस वर्ड है. एक्टिव लिखेंगे. Ready? Started. Under the circumstances, it is only natural, sir, that we should have some measure by which the university education can be coordinated into something which will cater for national unity and for national recovery in the sphere of education. But unfortunately, this bill, with all the fine things that the mover described yesterday, does not attempt to do anything. For instance, it has gone far beyond the terms of reference, if I may say so, of the University Education Commission with regard to the constitution of a University Grants Commission. From the very title, it is obvious that the University Grants Commission will deal with the allocation of funds that will be permitted by Parliament for educational purposes. That is how it is done in other countries. In England, for instance, the British Parliament makes a grant and the University Commission distributes it among the 19 universities. Here, this is not a compulsory measure, that is not an obligatory measure. Now, this is not the way to reorganize education even at the university level. Sir, I quite agree that universities should maintain their autonomy and they should be independent bodies, and their purpose in our society is that of, say, the Supreme Court or the independent judiciary in the sphere of individual rights, that is, they stand for academic freedom. All these things are essential for a university organization, and all these things can be done by better coordination and better control by the central government. But the question is, does this bill, as it has been presented to us now, make any attempt for, or does it even make provision for attempting these things? My humble opinion, sir, is that it does not. To begin with, sir, it has gone far beyond, as I said, the duties imposed on the University Grants Commission by the University Education Commission itself. Secondly, it has failed to understand the reasons why there is a fall in the standards of education and the reasons why there should be a coordination of efforts and for determining the standards of teaching and examinations in our universities. Sir, the standards of teaching and examinations can be maintained only by the university itself. It is not legislation that determines the standards of a university. It is not the inspecting bodies that determine the standards of a university. The standards of a university are determined by the teaching staff, by the university authorities, by the academic bodies, and by the moral of students, which also depends upon these factors. Now, there is nothing in this bill, nor is this the kind of a bill which is needed to ensure these things. Already in this country, we have other educational bodies. We have from time to time our vice chancellors, conferences. We have the inter-university board, and we have the Central Advisory Board of Education. All these bodies deal with the problems arising in universities, the problems arising out of this amorphous growth without any rule or without any order or without any plan or without any design or without any policy. Now, these things have not been dealt with by these advisory bodies. Therefore, if the government thinks that a statutory body should be created, then I should say that this is not the kind of bill that should be produced. Secondly, sir, what is the means of control that the organization will have when it is constituted? The means of control is finance, and finance that it has is very, very inadequate indeed, as it is evident from the financial memoranda. Now, we may agree that the University Grants Commission is likely to get huge grants, as it should, in my opinion, because one recalls the statement made by the minister in the British Parliament after distributing 12.5 million pounds to 19 universities. He said, if there is a demand for university education, I will not hesitate to grant more funds. That should be the spirit in which our parliament should work with regard to the encouragement of university education. Now, there is no obligation of the government to supply funds, nor is there any on the universities to apply for funds. Mr. Chairman, sir, the speakers who have preceded me have given a very grim picture of the economic situation, employment situation, and a very depressing situation of the country. I am glad to know that Sri Vasant Seth was speaking in 1979 in favor of this sort of a bill, and I am very glad that he has again contributed to the debate in a very constructive manner. Well, we have figures galore, statistics galore, but figures and statistics would not solve our own problem. Every year, the figure of 8 million unemployed is added. We are sending rockets into the sky, but we are not spending enough money for the poor and the needy people of this country. We have made serious mistakes in various fields, as has been pointed out by Sri Vasant Seth. 80 स्पीड है, फ्लक्चुएशन 5 वर्ड अपवर्ड साइड में है, फुल स्टॉप का गैप दिया गया है, और ये SSC C D टेस्ट नंबर 59 80 की स्पीड मिल जाएगा. सीन कंटेंट लिखेंगे आप. जो सीन कंटेंट है आपके पास दोनों ऑप्शन है, विद कोमा नो कोमा टाइप करने के. रेडी? Start it. The Industrial Policy Resolution of 1948 was good so far as it went. But unfortunately, the spirit of it could not be understood or appreciated by the common man in this country. So, a new orientation of this policy was given, and the Honorable Prime Minister, after his return from China, publicly declared that the future policy of the country, or rather the future pattern of society, will be the socialist pattern. That was further emphasized by the resolution passed at the Avdi session of the Congress and later reiterated by Sri Debar, President of the Indian National Congress. I am very glad to say that the spirit of it has been caught by the nation today. If I may say so, the nation has taken up the challenge for securing the socialist pattern of society. It behoves all sections both inside this house as well as outside, without having mutual recriminations, to try and propagate in a sincere manner and establish the socialist pattern of society indicated by the statements of the great leaders of our country. It may be relevant and pertinent if I refer to a few sentences from the memorandum presented on the 4th June 1999 by our Prime Minister, who was the chairman of the All India Planning Committee, which came into existence when there was full autonomy in the states. On pages 39 and 40 of that report, he stated, it is clear that the drawing up of a comprehensive national plan becomes clearly an academic exercise with no relation to reality unless the planning authority or those to whom it is responsible are in a position to give effect to the plan. If this authority is powerless or circumscribed or restricted and has limited activities, it cannot plan. An essential prerequisite for planning is thus complete freedom and independence for the country and removal of all outside control. This implies that the country possesses in itself full sovereign authority to take any measures, adopt any policies, and form any relations with other countries as may seem best to its governing authority in the interests of the country and its people. National independence is thus an indispensable preliminary for taking all the steps that might be found necessary for carrying out the 5-year plan in all its various aspects throughout the whole country. At the present moment, it is clear that not only have we in India no national independence, but we are hedged in and obstructed by numerous restrictions, limitations, safeguards, and reservations which block the path to planning and progress. Our plan for national development must therefore be drawn up for a free and independent India. Thanks to the sacrifices made by millions of our countrymen and countrywomen under the leadership of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, we have today secured complete sovereign political independence at a time when the nations of the world were engaged in the bitterest struggle using all the weapons of destruction. If therefore we have secured political independence during the period of a quarter of a century, it should not be difficult, especially when we are today masters in our own country, to secure a socialist pattern of society as has already been indicated, but it requires the assistance, the propaganda, the active work of all those who are interested in this. I am sure so long as my honorable friends, the minister, the deputy minister, and the other minister who represent the Commerce and Industry Ministry can give us an assurance that the capitalist pattern would be avoided. Some of us who believe in a 100% socialist democracy, given an undertaking that certainly totalitarian policy will not be introduced in this country, because we have believed all along during the fight that we have given to the British government when we secured political independence, when we shall try to maintain democracy undiluted and a socialist democracy at that. I am absolutely certain that in this country of ours, liberty of thought, liberty of speech, and liberty of action will be guaranteed to every citizen to express his views in the manner he pleases. I therefore assure my honorable friend that so long as we do not, in the garb of a socialistic pattern, support a capitalist system, India will stand 100% for a socialist democracy. Now, luckily for us, the fundamental rights of the Constitution have declared that a citizen would be assured of many of the social amenities which will give reasonable comfort from the womb to the grave. But mere enunciation, as I have said many times, will not satisfy the common man unless the saying is put into effect. I am absolutely certain, therefore, that so long as there is a determination on the part of our countrymen, we will be in a position to secure a socialist pattern of society. It is not even possible to draw up a plan or any other basis. ये 5 नंबर है केसी का. आप विद कॉमा नो कॉमा जो भी फाइल आप चाहते हो उसमें टाइप कर सकते हो.